Hello and welcome to a very important discussion, the fight against asthma. According to the World Health Organization, asthma affects as many as 235 million people globally, and it's also one of the most common chronic disease among children. 1 out of every 12 asthma patients globally live in India. And what's frightening and distressing is that these numbers are rising steadily. Today, our discussion aims to understand the increasing prevalence of asthma in India, its triggers, and most importantly, what can be done to keep our children and our families safe. Well, we have a fascinating lineup of panelists. I have with me Rahul Dravid, who is the Philips Air Purifiers Ambassador. I also have with me Gulbahar Torani. He is the President for the Indian Subcontinent Philips Personal Health. Dr. Himanshu Garg, a very famous pulmonologist. Welcome to the show. Preeti Quatra, she's the founder and director for Petal Group of Play Schools. And Anubhav Jain, she's the director for Nurture Planet. Welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Garg, let me come to you first. Asthma, as I was just mentioning, is a chronic respiratory disease and it's affecting more and more people in India, particularly children. So I want you to talk about its prevalence in India and I want you to talk about the biggest triggers of asthma.
We have a huge problem at our hands in terms of increasing prevalence of asthma. So typically when we talk about the prevalence numbers, and it's a chronic disease which has many phenotypes. So, studying the exact epidemiology and coming up with a number, we know for sure it's about 2 to 3%, but with the sheer population that we have, it still means we have about 1 in every 10 to 1 in every 12 person being an Indian with an asthma. Typically when we talk about sort of an asthmatic, we'll think about a small child or somebody who's young in his younger years, being an asthmatic. But what we are seeing in clinical practice these days is increasing number of elderly, even we've had patients who are 70, we're diagnosing them as asthma. Typically, if you diagnose somebody after 40, you would think about whether he's really an asthmatic. So those are the environmental conditions, I guess, which are contributing to the increased prevalence of asthma.
Absolutely. Rahul, you've been coaching the Indian junior cricket team. In your experience, do you think that respiratory diseases or such serious ailments is a deterrent as far as sports is concerned? What would you advise?
Yeah, it definitely is, and I mean, if you look at sport today, sport is changing so much. I mean, it's become so much faster. Fitness has become such an incredible part of sport, and it's becoming very tough to compete at any level if you're not physically fit. And cardiovascular fitness is the bedrock of all fitness in sport. I mean, we talk about these yo-yo tests and bleep tests that the cricketers go through or most sportsmen go through. They're nothing but cardiovascular fitness tests. I mean, if your lungs are compromised and like sometimes when I hear right from a young age that they're compromised, then it becomes very difficult to do very well in these sort of cardiovascular tests, and it does impact obviously your performances. It impacts your general health, and then that impacts performances and your ability to have a career in sport.
Mr. Torani, environmental factors also can trigger signs and symptoms of asthma as well. In fact, environmental factors can play such an important role. I was just talking about the pollution levels that one has seen in northern part of India. You have respiratory diseases that can also have a very, debilitating kind of an impact on one's lifestyle. So your thoughts on the same, your thoughts on environment and how they contribute to these respiratory diseases?
See, one of the things that we need to realize is India is not the same as it used to be when we were growing up, right? A lot of urbanization, development, growth, all this brings problems like air pollution, right? Pollutants like PM 2.5, dust, pollens, they all trigger asthma and other respiratory diseases. Not only that, if you look at it, majority of the time that we spend is indoor, and indoor air is more polluted than the outdoor air. And that's one fact that we all need to realize and need to ensure that once we know that the indoor air is more polluted, actually it takes the risk of such issues even more. Look at the recent data. Few of our own cities like Delhi, Calcutta, Kanpur, Lucknow, they figure in the world's top most polluted cities. Not only that, cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Mumbai, the pollution level is increasing and the danger for all such respiratory issues is also increasing.
What are the early signs of asthma in children? Dr. Garg, how do you identify some of the important points that you can catch?
It's an important question, I guess, and the parents are concerned about whether the child, one must remember that the child is growing up and the lung is developing. So a lot of the times that the child may have wheezing or a breathing trouble, all that is not asthma. So remember, all that wheezes is not asthma, and especially in a child. the child has a smaller airway, and if you have a little bit of mucus stuck in that, they will wheeze. They will have a presentation which will be very similar to that of asthmatic. In fact, in the early childhood, it is very difficult to be able to label somebody as asthmatic or non-asthmatic, and therefore one has to be really careful. But we, what we see also, so if you have a child which is who's having recurrent cough, wheezing, breathlessness, so all those are typical symptoms of asthma. But it's very difficult to be able to label somebody as small as 5 years, 7 years as asthmatic. Once they're a little grown up, adolescents, then it is easier. So a lot of kids may just grow out of asthma in adolescence. So one must be careful, but we see a lot of resistance amongst the parents to be able to accept this fact. If you prescribe them inhalers, they'll be very resistant. The whole idea of asthma frightens them, freaks them out, and therefore even sometimes the doctors also give in and they just prescribe them oral. One must remember, despite we've got today very good management for asthma, you should not resist it. There is nothing that the asthma will prevent you from. And we've had the earlier discussion, you can play sports. If you understand your disease, befriend it, learn to live with it, you can deal with it. Therefore, important to understand that you get the right therapy, which is inhalation therapy, which is resisted a lot by the parents.
And to detect it at the right time as well. Anubha, May 7th is World Asthma Day. What is the significance of World Asthma Day to India? Given the numbers that I was just talking about in my introduction, I was mentioning that 1 out of every 12 asthmatic patients globally live in India. So your thoughts on the same?
So first of all, I would say it is very unfortunate that 10% of patients are in India. The positive sign is that we are discussing about it. We are acknowledging the fact that this is something, there is a trend, it is increasing day by day, and maybe in the years to come, if we don't control the air pollution and different reasons for it, so we don't work on it, then the numbers would definitely increase.
Dr. Garg, just to take from what Mr. Thurani was talking about, the effects of indoor pollution, while the stress and the thrust has been on outdoor pollution and what we are breathing outside, tell us about the harmful effects of indoor pollution, what they do to children, what do they do to adults as well, because it has become one of the major cause for respiratory diseases as well in our country.
Yes, absolutely. I think some of our learnings in the last few years, and as the focus has always been on the outdoor pollution, which we have no control on. As individuals, I guess it is, it needs larger policy action. It is a wider. It will take many years. So the focus has definitely shifted on the indoor air quality, indoor air pollution, and we've learned in the last few years about the impact of indoor air pollutants. So some of it is just the reflection of the outdoor air pollution. Ultimately, the air just comes from outside. If you have a high PM2.5 level outside, definitely you will have a higher PM2.5 level in the environment. Plus, we also have some other pollutants in the indoor, be it the paint. You have NOCs, the VOCs, volatile organic compounds. You have house dust mite. You have number of other pollutants. If you have carpets, you will have a number of other pollutants which are also contributing to asthma. And we've known for that. If you have pets, for example, you have you will more likely to have some of those pollutants that the pets may harbor. And so it's a very important, I guess, and we in a way we have a better control of the indoor air quality, or we could express a greater control of, and they are absolutely known to be the major triggers for asthma. If you talk about the asthma, the house dust mite, which is not visible to the naked eye, and you may be living in a very clean environment with your bedding and everything done, but there may be so much house dust mite which is triggering asthma in the children. So very important, I guess, in the whole our fight against asthma, to be thinking about the indoor air pollution.
That's an important point, but Preeti, because you work in the space and interact with children, is it disappointing to see when children outdoor activities are restricted, or at least parents being a little extra cautious? Because the reality is that the air that we breathe is toxic. I mean, now the awareness has come about. There are measures that are being put in place to try and restrict the pollution. But have you come across those moments where, you have that disappointment written over little kids' faces and asking them not to play outside?
Yes, please don't take my child to the field trip. Please don't take my children to the outdoor play, because they get infection, they have allergy, they catch a cold and cough, bronchitis, they have bronchitis patient and all these stuff. Then we need to sit with the parent, then we need to take consent of the parent that please trust us, please tell us what are the precautions you are taking. In case of an emergency, we will definitely take care of those things, but plus don't stop child growth and a progress, because asthma is not a disability, right? It is a problem, it is a respiratory
Because
disease.
you also think that is instrumental in the holistic
Yes.
development of a child.
Yes, yes, it is very important, right? See, asthma is a respiratory problem. Definitely, we do take care of certain things like that. Children, those who are suffering from asthma should not get attacked or a severe but particular incident at that time. But yes, we request our parent, we communicate with them, we sit with them, have a meeting, we have a special committee in our school, those who take care of the children, those who are having breathing problems, so that we will take care of those.
Absolutely. This is a very, very important issue that we are talking about, the fight against asthma and the effects of pollution that we are seeing on not just adults, but our future generation, our children as well. I'm stepping into a short break, but our discussion continues. There'll be lots more questions and answers from our panel of experts here. Join us in just a short while. Welcome back to our ongoing discussion on a very important issue, the fight against asthma and the impact of pollution. Mr. Thurani, how significant then do you think are air purifiers in reducing air pollution and perhaps curbing the impact of asthma?
So I think it's very clear from our discussion that the first step is to have the awareness. The second is how do we take care and what is the solution? Now, air purifiers is one of them, and why? Because why I say so, because it starts at home, and prevention is the key. Air purifiers, that's exactly that. What they do is they take away the airborne pollutants like 2.5, pollens, dust mites, and all other pollutions which actually trigger the asthma and other respiratory issues. If you look at the toxic levels in India, it's 8 to 10 times higher than what WHO standards suggest, and that makes us even it's
that's
very
frightening.
yeah,
it's alarming just
it's
to
like
read
you know
those figures.
like we are hearing suggestions like people move out of the city, but that's not, as Dr. Garg said, that's not something which is what we want. What we want is to provide an environment wherein you can breathe healthy and you can live healthy, and air purifiers contribute to it in a way that at least what is under our control, which is indoor air, it gives you a solution which can help you breathe healthy indoor.
Okay, that's interesting. Dr. Garg, we talked about the prevalence of asthma in India and its alarming spike as well. But if you could just tell us a little bit more, or enlighten us rather, about the precautions that one can take against this ailment.
So, as you know, asthma is quite a complex disease. It exists in different forms. So the prevention of asthma is very important, I guess. But you'll have to divide it into two. The primary prevention of asthma would have to be in utero. When in pregnancy, and we've not done in science great work with being able to, if you have the risk of asthma, can in the future generations in utero make some manipulation, do something to prevent sort of asthma in those kids. So then all we're down to is secondary prevention. Once you are prone to it or you have asthma, so what do you do to prevent yourself from getting sick? And a lot of has already been discussed. I think in the panel we've got starting from the early childhood. I think if the parents can, avoid giving them foods with a lot of artificial colorants or artificial ingredients, things which are more natural, and then also addressing their problems when they're wheezing, when they're having breathlessness. We see a lot of kids, and as we discussed earlier also, that the parents have that resistance in trying to address some of those problems, and those kids then therefore go on to develop full-blown asthma as they grow old. So secondary prevention, whatever we can, as and as I said earlier, is it is the hereditary which will load the gun and the environment which will pull the trigger. So as much work as we can do to control our indoor environment, outdoor environment at a policy. So a lot of that will need a lot of work, a lot of collective community effort. But at individual level, not using carpets, soft toys, keeping a clean environment, house dust mite, controlling that. A little bit about the food and yoga, if we can make sure we've got the ancient wisdom of yoga, we've not utilized so well.
Yes.
So though those things I think are the primary things.
Interesting. Absolutely. Rahul, what do you suggest? What do you think in your experience are some of the precautions that sports persons can take to fight such respiratory ailments?
Well, I think just maybe controlling the controllables is what we can start off with. Is like the basic things that we can control: a healthy lifestyle, ensuring that there's awareness about asthma, awareness about the disease, building confidence in young people and in their parents that while it is a problem, it's not. Shouldn't stop you from doing anything.
Yes.
Using things like air purifiers, working on other environmental issues which can help us. Small ways. I think there's only that much we can do, and I think we've all agreed on that. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done at a much higher level or at a much more governmental level to make a huge difference.
That's true.
But I think controlling the basic controllables is probably a good place to start.
Anubha, speaking of the trigger, it was the alarming levels of pollution that one has seen in the last few years that has, triggered massive outrage, has evoked some very sharp reactions, to which we have the government responding. In fact, the government even has finalized the National Clean Air Program to improve air quality of India. So at least it has had the desired impact, this kind of uproar that one saw amongst concerned citizens. Your thoughts on the same?
First of all, we must thank our government that they have actually made this program. That program was made last year only, and 2019 is the first year. So it's a 5-year program. If government takes definite actions, then definitely we will see results in 2 or 3 years.
And are you hopeful that it would reduce the burden of asthma?
Yes, if proper actions are taken, there would be a reduction in the cases. And we say that we are here with the government. I have worked with government, Municipal Corporation of Ghaziabad. Last year we did massive plantation. We worked on waste management and single-use plastic. We spread a lot of awareness, and government was working with us. We were coming up with the initiatives, and their team was working with us. So this time also we are ready to work with government. It's only that government has to come up with a plan and execute it.
At least it's a step in the right direction,
Right,
isn't
exactly.
it, Mr. Thurani? And it's also heartening that there's a proactive approach now by the concerned authorities. What is the role that Philips play in helping patients manage asthma?
So we at Philips strive at improving people's life through meaningful innovation. We talk about solutions like air purifiers and all. We have almost 40 plus years of experience in research and development around these issues. But beyond products and solutions, what we are investing is a lot of effort and resources on clinical studies. Now, what these studies are going to do, they are going to bring about the right insights, the right measures and the accurate impact of the various solutions. So that's something that we are trying to do at Philips beyond products and solutions, because these are something which are there and we will definitely keep innovating more. But we also want to bring more insights on the table so that we are more aware and we can take the right solutions forward.
In fact, let me also ask Preeti, who's the founder and director with Petal Group of Play Schools, about the impact of pollution on little kids and asthma. Preeti, in your experience, what are some of the ways that schools can help young children combat asthma? Have you experienced it yourself?
Yes.
Do you try different ways to help kids with asthma?
Yes, we have tried a lot. First of all, we have formed a committee, conscious teachers, 3 to 4 teachers, those who are aware about this kind of a disease, right? They, like some of the children at this tender age, like 1 year to 5 years, that children are suffering from respiratory disease, right? First of all, we have already installed air purifier in each and every class and in corridors. Like if we can only control indoor environment, right? Up to certain extent. So we have already installed air purifiers. We have already using indoor plants which help us to fight the pollution. And the third most important thing is 3 pillars are working together. We are working on how to control the waste pollution. We are working with the kids. The second important pillar is a parent. We are making our parent aware that how to control pollution and how to control the indoor environment in your home and surroundings in your neighborhood, which is very, very important, because pollution is a major trigger for the asthma. And the third important pillar is the teachers. We all 3 pillars are working together in the school so that we can prevent at least as maximum as many children we can.
Absolutely. Anubha, your final comments? Prevention is better than cure. Some preventive step.
I strongly recommend the short-term solution and the long-term solution. We have to make our environment better. We have to work on plantation drives to have more oxygen in the air, and plants will definitely reduce the carbon dioxide and other harmful gases from the environment. We have to work on the waste management. It is very important that we work on a long-term solution. We have to protect ourselves from the environment. We have to take steps. We have to put in air purifier, indoor plants, stay away from it. But long-term solution, waste management, plantation drives.
Wonderful. Mr. Thurani, your last thoughts?
So I think it's each citizen's responsibility that we contribute to the cause, and we need to be mindful of small things like not smoking in the public places, because that adds to the pollution. This is under our control and we can actually improve that, and also do away with the stereotypes and be open to the solutions which are available to ensure that first we are aware and then we can actually give a better ecosystem for our future generations to combat such problems if there are any.
That was wonderful, Mr. Thurani, and this session has been absolutely fascinating, such an eye-opener, so enriching and enlightening, and it really comes down to right food, right air to breathe, right lifestyle, right exercise, right environment at home. All of these are so important to ensure that your kids blossom. Asthma is a sign of something wrong in the respiratory system, but it's not really a disease, something that has already been spoken of at length by our panelists. And kids, most importantly, need to be exposed to nature and greenery. Mr. Thurani, Rahul Dravid, Mr. Garg, Preeti, Anubha, thank you so much for joining us on this very important panel discussion on how to fight against asthma.